With Disney having absorbed 20th Century Fox into the fold, Marvel has finally got the rights back to superheroes like the Fantastic Four. We'll eventually see this team grace our screens once again, but you gotta wonder, who's gonna be playing the members of this marvelous team when the time finally comes? And what if we had the chance to see this team form up way earlier than the 2015 or 2005 films, and also ignoring the 1994 unreleased B movie? That's right, it's time to boot up your Photoshop and get into some fan castings. Come along as we reimagine what the Fantastic Four cast would look like in the 1990s and potentially in the near future. Reed Richards, or Mr. Fantastic, is the leader of the Fantastic Four and considered to be the smartest man on Earth 616. But this isn't a wide-eyed, really fast-speaking bazinga type of smart guy.
Bazinga!
He's quiet, caring, and a calculating individual who would prefer to study a problem than fight it out. He withdraws into himself quite frequently, thinking a lot about the long-term and minute details, so much so that he forgets what's happening right in front of him. As a result, whoever was to play him would need to be able to play that strong, silent type with depth, so we know there's a million scenarios playing out in their head. And who else from the 90s would love to play more scientists? Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford, when not playing a roguish type, typically likes to play men of intellect, which is why he shined in the likes of Indiana Jones. Throughout the 90s, Harrison Ford played the likes of Jack Ryan from Patriot Games, Dr. Richard Kimball of The Fugitive, and President James Marshall of Air Force One. The man is used to action, but can also play to the internal conflict that Reed Richards is known for. If not, maybe Keanu Reeves. What do you think? But if we jump to 2020, who would take up the role of Mr. Fantastic in the present? John David Washington of Tenant and Black Klansman fame has expressed interest in the role, and from his performances in both of those movies, he would be an incredible choice. But the current fan favorite appears to be John Krasinski of The Office fame, who has really come into his own since the series ended, with roles in The Quiet Place and in Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. One of the best things about John is his ability to play subtle emotions. With slight tweaks in his facial expression, he's able to communicate so much to the audience that's been prevalent since his breakout role as Jim Halpert. Now that he's buffed up, I think we could all see him in the role. But who's to tell what the heads of Marvel think about any of these picks? Susan Storm of Earth 616 is the glue that holds the team together. Warm, caring, and responsible, when everyone is at each other's throats, she's the one who brings them all down. While Mr. Fantastic may be the leader, Invisible Woman, ironically, does most of the stuff that would largely go unnoticed. While she isn't a pushover, being the mother of the group can strain her. As a result, you need an actress who's able to pull off the chemistry between each of the different character dynamics with Ben Grimm, Johnny Storm, and her partner Reed Richards. She needs depth. While she shows a strong exterior, there needs to be more going on underneath. For the 1990s, you could look to Embeth Davidtz. She was early in her career at this point, as during the 90s she came out in roles in hugely memorable films like Army of Darkness, Matilda, and Schindler's List. She had demonstrated throughout the 90s she had a motherly but playful side to her and wasn't afraid to shine away from the more dramatic moments. But the biggest thing that might get in her way is her lack of action experience. However, since a lot of Invisible Woman's abilities aren't very reliant on extreme mobility and tech restrictions of the time, it may be more of an emotional hurdle. The fan favorite to play Sue Storm for the 2020s is currently Emily Blunt. She has incredible range as an actress, able to switch between kind and motherly to hardened and competent through the likes of Sicario and Mary Poppins. Plus, she is no stranger to wire work in action with her work on Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. Plus, it does help that John Krasinski is her partner, having starred alongside him in The Quiet Place. If you watch any interviews between them, you'll see there's already great chemistry there. Delving away from the main team for a moment, let's take a little dive into the casting of the Silver Surfer, one of the noblest and most tormented cosmic entities in the universe.
Oh, that is cool.
This humanoid alien cherishes freedom above everything else and sacrifices so much for the good of everyone else. Being an incredibly powerful character, his conflicts don't usually come from the biggest physical threat he is facing, but more the philosophical ones. Besides his basic naivete, there is always a touch of melancholy melancholy about him as he never tends to fit in, and his time destroying countless worlds under Galactus has left him with a heavy heart. As a result, the actor who plays him will have to play a slightly socially awkward but very introspective character. And in the future, where he will no doubt be mostly CGI, a lot will have to be communicated with his face and, most importantly, his eyes. For the 1990s, we have Ralph Fiennes, a fantastic actor who by that point was very early on in his career, starring in the likes of Schindler's List, but would have excelled at giving us that melancholic take on the character. Plus, can't you just imagine that voice dishing out some space wisdom? Maybe not with the hiss from the Voldemort performance, though. Jumping forward to the 2020s, there are a couple of people who would vote for Mark Strong to play the Silver Surfer. Mark Strong is a fantastic actor, but the biggest theme in the Silver Surfer story is his humanity. Plus, Mark Strong does seem to be in the habit of getting involved with DC movies over Marvel, recently with Shazam and way back with Green Lantern. Through the CGI layers and chrome aesthetic, the eyes will be the most important thing, and Dev Patel holds such power in those things that he could be masterful at it. You may have seen Dev Patel in the likes of Slumdog Millionaire, Lion, and The Last Airbender, but we don't talk about that last one. Through countless roles, Dev has been able to capture audiences through emotional journeys in the various films he's been in. A lot of the films he's been in are indeed fairly realistic drama, but give him a chance and I'm sure he could pull off a character like this. Then again, it would be a shame to shave off all that glorious hair. Ben Grimm arguably has the hardest acting job of them all. The Thing's story is about overcoming suffering and prejudice, but he can't be all doom and gloom as his back and forth with Johnny Storm is what brings most of the comedy to the superheroes group's adventures. The biggest problem, however, when playing this character, especially if it was to happen in the 1990s, is that he would have to show that through layers upon layers of makeup, possible prosthetics, and puppetry. There isn't any CGI that's going to make these characters big, so the actor would have to be big in the first place, not ignoring the fact that Ben Grimm was an ex-football player before he transformed. For the 1990s, Michael Clarke Duncan might have been on the radar, but only if it was the late 90s. This man proved throughout his career not only could he be a strong man of little words, have comedic timing, but also some of the best emotional acting that's still remembered to this day in The Green Mile. Another contender could have been Ron Pearlman. This man had already been way into fitness early on, before he even started acting, but he had already lended his voice to the Fantastic Four in an animated series. He may not have been one of the Fantastic Four, but he was at least familiar with the source material. Whether any acting of these two would have shined through a 1990s Thing suit, we're not sure. But what about now? A lot of people seem to think David Harbour would have been a good choice, but since his casting in Black Widow as the Red Guardian, it doesn't look like he'll be taking up another superhero costume anytime soon. People have also tossed around Terry Crews for the role, and while Terry Crews has tackled tough issues in the likes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, we've never really been able to see too much multi-layered performances from the actor. If he was able to show that, get him on it. But if you were looking for an actor with the ability to be the muscle of the group while still having that soft side to him, Liev Schreiber may be your man. Since being Sabretooth in X-Men Origins, this man has proved he can play both an older, tougher character in the likes of Goon, but also have a softer side in the likes of Spotlight. That dynamic range could come in handy for our big rocky fella. Dr. Doom is the most important casting decision in the Fantastic Four. The reason for this is because even though he starts off as a monarch of Latveria to the nemesis of the superhero team, he then elevates to becoming an enemy to so many more heroes and cosmic beings throughout the Marvel Universe. Dr. Doom is a character that requires a heavy presence, intimidating, intelligent, dominating, looking to bring order and betterment to humanity through world conquest. Kevin Feige could also pull a Thanos on us and try to make him more relatable. Back in the 90s, we have a big villain actor in the eyes of Gary Oldman, who would have been able to provide a strong but also psychotic nature to the character. He was hitting his villainistic strides back then with the likes of Dracula, Leon the Professional, and Air Force One. As a result, he could have provided a more calculating version of the character. But for the 2020s lineup, that Dr. Doom intensity could only be achieved by Javier Bardem, a veteran actor who is known for his incredibly intense performances. He's got the acting chops, he's familiar to action scenes, he's just terrifying to look at. From Skyfall, Pirates of the Caribbean, and No Country for Old Men, he's the villain actor to beat nowadays. However, whether he would agree to a multi-picture deal required from such a big villain, that's another question. And there you have it, folks. What do you think? Do you think someone better would play these roles? Or what are your casting predictions for future Fantastic Four movies? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and ring that bell to keep an eye for more Screen Rant videos. Thanks, guys, and we'll catch you next time.